that we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another the exact nature of our wrongs. There's a kind of army ant that is very powerful. In fact, army ants can lift 50 times their weight. Can you imagine that? Now I'm 225 pounds. I'll give myself a couple off. Anyway, and if I can lift 50 times that, I'd be like lifting up this building. I would be the Incredible Hulk. I mean, an army ant 50 times its weight. That's incredible. And they got claws that can pinch and hold on. I mean, they use them for stitches in some places. And they got the ability to travel long distances. They got that team mentality. You know, army ants, they have this inner sonar radar. They can use the Earth's magnetic flow to understand where they are. They got eyes. They can smell, but mostly they move in unison by pheromones. And there has often been observed what's called the death spiral of army ants. One of the ants goes out and it lays that pheromone, it lays that track for the others to follow. And maybe it's one of those exploratory ants that as it's marching, it's leaving the pheromones behind him, and then the wind blows and knocks him off course. But he keeps leaving the pheromones. And then the wind blows again and he keeps leaving the pheromones, and he picks up the scent of where he started. And now his pheromones just make a circle. And all the ants that travel behind him begin to travel in unison in that circle. And they go in that circle until they literally die of exhaustion. You'll see a pile of army ants in like a perfect circle because they just kept walking around and around and around until they died. They couldn't figure out, they had every ability, every capability. They can see, they can hear, they're strong, they're powerful. But they couldn't break out of that habit. Amen. And that's like a lot of us. We've been walking this death circle over and over again. We go back to those addictions. We go back to those sins. And I want us to find the way out. And the way out is this word confession. Will we acknowledge to ourselves, lying to yourself is still lying, that I need help. We acknowledge to God, God, you can help me. We acknowledge to those that we've wronged, I sincerely apologize. I was wrong. We confess to somebody that maybe can hold us to account. We've been looking at the history of Israel. We saw King Zedekiah as he was brought into captivity, watched his sons killed in front of him, his eyes gouged out, chains put on him and taken to Babylon. That's like our lives. When we're giving into sin, we're powerless against that addiction. Our life becomes unmanageable. And then we looked at Nebuchadnezzar, who when he thought he was more than he was, when he thought he had control of his whole life, his mind was taken from him until he acknowledged God. Then his sanity returned. And we looked at Cyrus, who was called by name, and he would conquer Babylon. And God had long said, Cyrus, who I call by name, will let my people go back and rebuild Jerusalem, rebuild the temple, rebuild the walls. And when he saw that God knew his name, he turned his will over to the will of God. And we looked last week at Nehemiah, who was sent, and he got to begin rebuilding those walls. But before he could rebuild, he had to take an honest inventory of everything that was. Today, if you have a Bible, turn to the book of Ezra, chapter 10. And here we see not only was Nehemiah building the walls around the city to protect it, but Ezra was building something, making the city worth protecting. It was